Welcome, everyone. It's very good to be here with you. We're gathered today to remember and celebrate the life of Phyllis Larson. To us, she was our sister, our mother, our grandmother, and our friend. What she wanted for this time was a good time where we would share memories and probably cry, but also laugh, and we will. One thing that Phyllis believed is that each one of us, especially her children and grandchildren, was special and had talents. And that's why I'm up here. One thing she did for me was encourage me to become a minister. So thank you very much for having me up here. My name is Ryan, and I'm a child of Scott and Evie, grandson of Phyllis. I wanted to let you know that in the middle of the service, there's going to be a time where we can share memories, open microphone style. And I know some of you have prepared something, but if something comes to someone else and you want to share it, that would be wonderful, but this is a no pressure situation. I was going to get us started. This evening we're going to pay attention to some of the words that Phyllis wrote for herself, and it's uncommon, I think, for someone to write their own obituary, and I'm going to read that. These are Phyllis's own words. My 89 years of life in mostly Racine have ended on December the 2nd, 2021, due to renal failure. I tried to be a good daughter to my wonderful parents, Thorvald and Verna Ransvog. I received my education in Racine, Park High School class of 1950. Of my best accomplishments, my children are the most important. Bruce Schreiber, Darlene, Jim Schreiber, Donna Buska, Scott and Evie Schreiber, Leanne and Sean Potts, and stepchildren Kay, Raleigh, Stewart, and Scott Lewis Larson have given me many great memories along with their wonderful children. My first husband, Harold Schreiber, and I shared 6 difficult years of a young marriage and our 3 sons. We divorced in 1958. I have been employed at Hamilton Beach, Goldblatt's, Oster's, American Honda Warehouse, and also our own business, L&M Meats. In 1963, I married Bervin Larson, and then our interesting life began. He had been a butcher at Bueller's Meat Market after his move to Racine from La Crosse, and next started L&M Meats with Henry Meyer. I was involved with catering. Our daughter Leanne was born in 1969 and brought us much joy. During our marriage, we hosted 8 Rotary Exchange students and learned to enjoy their different cultures and personalities. We later visited some of their countries. As a licensed pilot, my husband and I enjoyed flying on many flights with the Coombs. I'm probably mispronouncing some of these names, Combs. Lars and I shared many hobbies and especially loved to garden, read, do art projects, solve Sudoku puzzles, create stained glass pictures, listen to country classic music, watch the Packers play football, and making the food that my family liked the best, like pies, soup, and a special green spaghetti with meatballs. Together, we have 15 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren, each one very special. My special brother, Larry, with Julie Ransvog, survives me along with my sister-in-laws, Connie and Janice. My husband, Lars, died in 2009. My brother, Leo, in 1964. My brother, Fred, in 2005. Stepson Scott Lewis died in 1983. And my firstborn son, Bruce, died in 2020, which brought me much sadness. To all of my loving relatives, friends, and good neighbors, I wish for you a happy life. Thanks for everything. So some of us are going to be sharing reflections this evening, but one of you was much smarter than the rest to go early, and that's Leanne. I wonder if you would come up.
This is a little scary. So I thought, what way to practice public speaking than at your mother's funeral? So perfect, right? I guess first of all, I know there's a lot of jokes about me being the favorite. I know it's definitely not true, right? We've spent a lot of time sitting around the table looking at photos. So what I wanted to say at the end of my talk is how she passed and what our experience was. But I thought first I would start by describing my mom. And if anyone's received mail from her, you need to stop that, Melissa. I mean, I have not looked at any of the slideshows or the photos because I'm trying to remain strong. So in my mom's way of doing things, I'm going to describe her by the letters of her name because she loved to write letters to all of us. I know so many of you have gotten them. So anyway, here we go. P, patient. My mom was very patient, super patient, right? She would let my dad carry on at parties and sit back on the sidelines and watch him. I remember family dinners where perhaps he's had a few too many drinks, and Uncle Larry, where you guys telling some crazy jokes, and there she was, patient. She'd be, Lars! I don't know if you guys can imagine that, but in the meantime, she'd be putting together a wonderful family dinner and just have a great party for us. H, I would say happy. So I can't say she was always happy in her life. She endured many, many hardships. She lost her parents, then my dad, brothers, friends. But whenever she called me on the phone, she was always happy. Whenever someone walked through her door, she was always really happy. I would call her about every other day. Hi, hon. It was always, even if she felt horrible, she was always just the happiest thing. So I think when I say happy, I think the thing that made her happiest was when she heard, hi, Mom, hi, Grandma. Y stands for yes, because she didn't say no to any of us. She always said yes. Whatever we needed, she would help us out. L, loving. She was very, very loving. As you heard in her obituary, having kids was her best accomplishment. And I think the thing I've missed the most over the last few weeks has been our phone calls and hearing her voice. Always so loving, always so supportive. She always said, boy, your kids are going to do great things in life. She was like my biggest cheerleader. Talking to her was like a TED Talk. Thanks for smiling at me, Lexi. Every time I look at you, you're smiling. Thank you. Loyal. This one we know. She loved all of us. Once you married anyone in our family, you were in our family. Friends, neighbors, exchange students were always welcome. If you got a divorce, you did not divorce Phyllis. You were still in this family, right? I stands for interesting. She was very interested in everything. She loved nature and science. She cared deeply for the environment, as you've seen all her recyclables and everything. She was very, very frugal. I've got something here. I found this jacket in her closet, and I took it. And in the pocket is a receipt that says Goodwill, and she bought this jacket for $19 for Brandon's wedding. So anyway, she was very frugal. It was such a nice surprise to find this receipt in here. She read books constantly. She loved doing her puzzles every day. She was really convinced that that's what kept her brain very active all the way. She was very artistic and a wonderful gardener. S made me think for a little bit, and then it really hit me when I think of my mom, selfless. This was the most selfless person I've ever known. She didn't want anyone to fuss over her. She wouldn't want any of us fussing over her right now. She just wanted to sit in the sidelines and just the most selfless person that I know. I could have also said stubborn, right, Jim? Also could have said simple. Those are all S's that really came to mind. So if I've made it this far in my speech, which I have, then that's a miracle. But now I want to share for you her passing. And I think everyone in this room has probably seen me cry at least once or 10 times in the last 52 years, so whatever, I'm just gonna try and get through this. So on September 27th, I'll never forget, the doctor at the hospital called me and said, Mom's going home on hospice and she has 2 or 3 months to live. 2 or 3 months to live, that seems absolutely unbelievable. I booked a flight right away, came to Racine a few days later. She definitely didn't seem like she was gonna die in 2 months. And then I actually came back in October, and also Scott and Evie and Kay, we all kind of visited. Jim was caring for Mom. But then Mom really took a turn for the worse right around Thanksgiving. It was really, really difficult on Jim when this was happening. The Friday after Thanksgiving, she fell, and she was very sick. Jim knew the end was coming, and he was trying to relay that to me as well. I wanted to get there right away, but it was Thanksgiving weekend, so I arrived the Monday after Thanksgiving, and when I got to the house, Mom was pretty much already nonverbal. She mumbled a hi, sort of, but I sat by her side and held her hand, and she held my hand back. I pretty much didn't leave her, her side for a couple days. So Tuesday, when the hospice aide came, we were cleaning her up. She muttered a sentence while I was cleaning her, and she said, "Cold hands, warm heart," as I was like trying to help her. It was my hands that kind of woke her up and alerted her. But I think that was the last sentence I heard her speak. And I could see the hospice aide was really sad. She could tell Mom was going to pass soon. But I think the biggest thing you don't know when someone's on hospice is when it's going to happen, right? So we had Scott and Evie and Kay and Raleigh trying to get into town. They said they can go 2 weeks possibly, and like, oh, we can't do this. So one of the happiest times, I would say, in Mom's unalertness was Melissa had walked in, Melissa and Donna. She had been out on quarantine, and my mom definitely, something woke her up a little bit, and there was some excitement when Melissa and Donna walked in. So I was really anxious about Scott and Evie and Kay not being in Wisconsin yet. We were very worried. The plan was everyone was going to arrive on Thursday, so I kept telling Mom, they're coming, Mom, hang on there, hang on there. In the meantime, when someone's on hospice, they start this breathing, and it's like a death rattle. It's kind of a really horrible noise if you haven't heard someone dying before. But sometimes it would be 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds in between breaths. And it's really hard to listen to. Her beautiful face was starting to cave in a little bit. Larry was there. Davina came by every day. Donna and Melissa were there. Finally, on Wednesday evening, Ryan, my angel, arrived from Grand Rapids, and I knew if Scott and Evie weren't going to make it, that at least Ryan was there. He prayed with Mom and read the Bible to her, and he listened to her heartbeat with his stethoscope. Said your heart was beating real fast, or real good still, but anyway, we had our backup here. Jim and I had backup. So Thursday came, and I kept telling Mom that Kay was in her car driving, Scott and Evie were on an airplane. Hang on, Mom, hang on. Anyway, it's just terrifying when you're getting off a plane, checking your phone to see, is that message going to be there? And I kept holding her hand and holding her hand. So finally, everyone arrived. We all sat around her, and we all told her how much we loved her. We were all together finally, all of us, Jim, all of us standing around Mom's bed. So the house is not real big, and with the hospital bed in the living room, there's not a lot of space. So we took turns sitting on the couch and then in the kitchen. So anyway, we realized once we were all together, Mom made this amazing binder. I don't know how anyone could be so prepared, but anyway, this is where we found her obituary, everything about the house, everything about all her jewelry. She listed the clocks on there. It was just this amazing binder. So we decided to go in the kitchen. We were looking through this. We were reading her memoirs. And as we sat around the table, Kay started talking about our dad and how much he loved the piano and music. And as we read Mom's memoir, Kay mentioned that we were reading her sentimental journey and how much Dad loved that song. Our dad loved that song. It was such a nice memory to picture Dad sitting at that house on Linderman Avenue and the music and the family and the laughter. So I decided to slip back in next to her, sitting there, took my spot in the chair and took her hand. I pulled up my phone on Spotify, put on Sentimental Journey, push play, and something happened. Something happened to Mom. She became alert. She raised her hand toward the song twice, and then her breathing changed. And everyone else came in very quickly, and we all whispered how much we loved her and held on to her. And we listened to the song, and her breathing changed, and she passed while the song was playing. And it's probably one of the most beautiful and surreal moments that I've ever experienced in my life. And watching my mom's last breath. And I don't think she would have wanted it any other way, having us all around her. So anyway, we knew Mom had gone to heaven, and Evie pulled us all together with some superhuman power and said this beautiful prayer with us all holding hands. And anyway, we're now going to listen to the song. And aren't you glad I went first? Okay. Now I can watch.
Gonna take a sentimental journey. Gonna set my heart at ease. Gonna make a sentimental journey to renew old memories. Got my bag, got my reservation. Spent each dime I could afford, like a child in wild anticipation. Long to hear that all aboard. 7, that's the time we leave at 7. I'll be waiting up at heaven, counting every mile of railroad track that takes me back. Never thought my heart could be so yearning. Why did I decide to roam? Gotta take that sentimental journey, sentimental journey home, sentimental journey.
That's very beautiful. Michael, I think, is going to come up and read a famous passage of Scripture, Psalm 23. I believe, I know this was read to Phyllis within an hour of her passing.
This is a reading from Psalm 23. It starts with, "The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever."
We're at the time in our service where we can share memories, and I know some of you have something prepared. So if you feel brave, you can come up and share what you have. Thank you very, very much.
You're a hard act to follow. Well, I'm going to read mine because otherwise I'll never get through it.
Sorry, I just have to do this real quick for our live stream. We need to get more volume. There you go.
Okay. Well, I was blessed to be given two mothers. I came to my first mom in 1947, and my second mom came to me 13 years later. My birth mom had many health problems throughout her life, and so in many ways, mom number two was the mother who was always there for me. Even though we lived miles apart, she and Dad always came to all the important events in my life: births, graduations, showers, weddings. Whenever we needed a helping hand, they were there. I remember the first time I met Phyllis. I had mixed feelings about meeting my dad's girlfriend. My brother and I took a train from La Crosse to Milwaukee, where Dad met us at the station with three smiling boys in the back seat of his car, who would later become my brothers. I remember instantly feeling resentment towards them because they got to spend more time with my dad than I did. And if that wasn't bad enough, we went directly to the dreaded girlfriend's house. Needless to say, I had nothing to worry about. When we arrived, we were met at the door by a pretty, smiling, and warm woman who prepared a delicious spaghetti dinner for my brother and I. She made us feel so at home. That meal was the first of many to come. My brother and I made many trips to Racine after that. And while Dad was busy at work, Mom would find ways to entertain us. A typical day would consist of loading us 5 kids in her station wagon and taking us to the Museum of Science and Industry, followed by the Milwaukee Zoo, followed by a picnic at the beach, and then a delicious home-cooked meal for dinner. We'd round out the day by going to a movie. I was convinced my dad was dating Superwoman, and it wasn't long before I looked forward to the visits with the girlfriend. Mom Phyllis taught me how to sew, cook, and gave me my first set of oil paints. She instilled in me my love for drawing and painting. And she tried to teach me how to grow roses, but for some reason they never turned out like hers. She taught many lessons by example. Mom recycled before it was required. She saved eggshells in her microwave to nurture her flower bed and saved rinse water to water her plants. Rather than using pesticides, she would physically attack the slugs and bugs by squishing them to death. She took us to church, and she reminded us to slow down because we have more time than blood. She also gave me my sister. My favorite memories are those of our family Christmases. Every Christmas morning, Dad and Mom would make the 4-hour trip to La Crosse regardless of the weather. And when they pulled into the driveway, it was like Santa and Mrs. Claus came to the Stewart house. The car would be filled with wonderful gifts that they had both so lovingly made. Clocks, stained glass pieces, gifts that had become constant reminders of my loving parents. Mom always had a container of her beautiful Christmas cookies, cherry pie, crinkle, and of course the prime rib roast. As the years went by, grandkids came, and Mom always had a knack for knowing what would be a hit with them. Dad would tell stories and a few Ole and Lena jokes. And when all the gifts were opened and the stories told, Dad would give the first, "Well, Phyllis." It was a signal that it was time to go. And a few minutes would go by, and the second "Well, Phyllis" meant, "Get your coat." And the third "Well, Phyllis" was the final bid farewell. Well, Phyllis, you have gone to be with Dad now, and I look forward to the day when we meet again. But until then, you and Dad will live on in my heart.
Thank you, Kay. I think we're ready for more if anyone's brave enough.
This is not going to be easy. I jotted down some notes. My memories, about 75 years worth. Because, about 5 years old, that's when you start remembering things. I remember back over on Racine Street, where Leo and Phyllis were best of friends. They always were. They would do everything together. Through the years when we had weddings, there was a lot of cousins, a lot of weddings. And those two could dance together like you wouldn't believe. But back on Racine Street, I remembered my dad's Cadillacs were always there. And her best friend, Snooky, they just... They'd be out, everyone would be out until dark. You didn't have to worry about anything. Street lights came on and maybe you'd go home. I remember one thing about over on Racine Street was Phyllis yelled at me. I was probably, 5, and we were upstairs. Could you move this thing? And in the middle of the night, I got up to go to the bathroom, except I only made it to the closet where the megaphone was, and I managed to get in there. So she was yelling at me about that, and it affected me for the rest of my life. I had a dance. I remember traveling to Missouri when her and Harold got married, Fort Leonard Wood, went and seen some sights, and then the stories about when she went to Alaska and seen, what was it, Uncle Bud, was it? And they were top of a mountain, and the old truck that they had, they couldn't drive up the hill. They had to back up the hill to see them. And they had goats in the front, no electricity. Just, I guess that was probably quite a thing for them to see. I can't even read my own stuff down here. And then when the divorce came, because the farm was hard out in Burlington. Matter of fact, this last year I went out there. I was with a friend, and we just took a side trip down that little side road at the end of Echo Lake, and saw the old farm. And that's where the airport is, except the barn and another couple. I told you before. Is still there. And it was like, man, it was unreal. I thought, the airport, that was it. Their old house that only had the one heater in the basement with the big grate right in the kitchen that would heat the whole house. I remember I was upstairs and froze my ass off. The long hours, you get up early in the morning and do all the chores. Here I was a little kid, and I couldn't carry one 5-gallon pail of water to the cattle, but I could carry 2. And then you have a long day, you hay, you get all the way late at night, finally drive back. Matter of fact, here I am like 11, 12 years old, and here I'm driving either a truck or a tractor or their 1950 Ford with the drop back in it with 3 little kids in the back seat. And here I'm driving like about 5 miles from this other field back with the little kids. And then right at the end of the road, right where the river is, all of a sudden I go, uh-oh, slam the brakes on, and the kids all went, and nobody ever heard about that. And then the divorce, the kids came into our little house out there on Pratt Avenue. My folks, me and Fred, and then in the living room is Phyllis and there's 3 little kids in that one little house. And it was only like a day or 2 after they got out there, we looked out the front window, and there's Bruce and Jimmy peeing on the tree. It's like, I guess we got to teach them this is kind of the city. Oh, what the heck is this? That small house. Oh, and then, I've got many memories here, but I just had to pick out a few. Over on Ohio Street, that's where I met Larson. I remember him playing the organ, maybe Sentimental Journey. Now, with my band, every time we play every other week down in Illinois, and we play Sentimental Journey. So, what do you think I'm going to be thinking about? At that time, I remember picking up Phyllis quite a few times from either from Oster's or Hamilton Beach or something. For some reason, I don't know if it was parking or what, but I got to drop her off and pick her up from work. And then I suppose we just move a couple blocks and a block over, and then we got the big house and all those parties that we had. I got some tapes that I was just looking at for the Thanksgiving and Christmas. Remember Thanksgiving? Here's whoever was taking the pictures. Was here's my dad by the turkey, and Larson's like right next, and there's Phyllis. She's just doing stuff. She's cooking. She's in the baking. She's all over the place. And Lars, being the butcher, is watching my dad cut this turkey, and it's like, wouldn't you like to just cut it like that? It's like, but he always came with a drink. He got it. Have a drink. This is meant for Phyllis, but you can have it, you know. One of our favorite things, and I'm still looking for it, maybe I can find it in the basement, is the time we were down there. I must have had 2 guitars with. Mark was just little. He didn't know how to play, and then there was Missy and Leanne, and I'm playing off camera, and then Mark is playing like he's playing, except it really looks like he's playing. And then he goes at the end, oh, wasn't that the cat's pajamas, you know? But it was my voice, and he just mouthed it. And then we played, How Much Is That Doggy in the Window? And this is where those 2 start doing the hoochie coochie dance. And when they go, how much is that dog in the window? Here's Phyllis over on the side, and whoever panned over to get this, she's over there going, and it was so funny. Everyone just broke up. It was just hilariously funny. As I mentioned before, that she did have many sad days with Leo, Dad, Mom, Dad, 2 sons. But she had the grit to get through it. One thing I miss is she used to make me sour cream. Raisin pie. We'd have birthdays with, her birthday and Julie's birthday were close, so we would go to the Chinese restaurant, and whoever got there first paid for the other one. And then I stopped over there mostly every Thursday. I would have breakfast with some friends of mine that I played in a band with years ago, and then finish out the day before I went home. I'll stop over and see Jim and Phyllis. And we used to talk about her puzzles. She'd show me a puzzle that she's having trouble with, and I started doing puzzles. I'm doing it on my iPad, and I'm up to like 500 and some experts. Okay, well, we got to talk about life. Phyllis's life. That flame, or maybe a spark. There's life, and that life goes into that shell, that body that grows up. And then that makes that person, and they operate, they have kids. That life was given to her by my folks. That life was transferred to you and all of you kids. Her life is right here. She is here right now, looking at me. That body was useful, but once once the body grows up and they discover that, hey, this doesn't feel too bad, then you end up transferring that life on. So this flame, this life is still here. I can see it. I can see it there. I can see it everywhere. You have the life. You have Phyllis in you right now. Well, I'm done, and you can help me with the one phrase that we all know. Well, Phyllis.
I think there is only one other reflection that I know of.
So my sister couldn't make it, Amy. So I was asked to read this letter, so I'll get through it the best I can. It really speaks for our family. Some of the things my mom already talked about, and Larry and Leanne. So as I read this, I hope you hear my sister's voice. My sister, brother, and I always called our grandma by her first name. I'm not sure why we did this, as she was every bit a grandmother to us. I can't remember a summer where us kids didn't go to Racine for a week or two. Phyllis and Grandpa would load us country folk up in their extra large station wagon and drive us to Racine. Grandpa usually stopped at the Golden Arches or a highway diner along the way, which was a real treat for us. I didn't realize until after into my adulthood what an enormous impact Phyllis had on our lives. She opened many windows into the world for me. Phyllis opened her home to 3 country bumpkins with loving arms. We were fortunate to get acquainted with their many exchange students through the years. We learned about their different cultures from the periphery of a child's eye. What a gift. I learned the joy of following your passions from Phyllis. It became clear that she absolutely loved gardening, painting, cooking, and so much more. It showed me the reward of meticulously tending to the things that she so deeply cared about. When we went to Racine, there was no sitting around. Phyllis took us to all the Star Wars and Indiana Jones movies, to the IMAX theater, Lake Michigan, and museums. Many of these experiences opened the world, my world, to things that I have never even imagined before. I have fond memories of Phyllis teaching me to roller skate. I wore Leanne's skates in a yellow satin short set trimmed in red. I felt like one of Charlie's Angels. Christmas was extra special when Phyllis and Grandpa and Leanne would celebrate it in La Crosse with us. The anticipation of them arriving made me downright giddy. I loved when Phyllis brought her Tupperware of colorful cooking in from the back of their station wagon, along with a couple of L&M Kringles, of course. Phyllis and Grandpa always invited us to swim at the Best Western Hotel, which was at the time the best hotel in La Crosse. We swam and played for hours with our Aunt Leanne, aka Leroy. I was always sad and the dreaded time when they would leave and have to drive back to Racine. There's so much that I will always remember and cherish about Phyllis. Through the years, I would always think of her smile whenever I hear Paul Harvey's voice on the radio. Much like Paul Harvey's news program, Phyllis provided me a gateway into the broader world. Without her love and generosity, I would have never known. And now you know the rest of the story. Good day.
Those are the only reflections that I know about. I don't want to cut anyone off, but there are some good pieces here that we're about to get to. Phyllis and Lars speaking for themselves. So right now, Benny is going to read an excerpt from Phyllis's memoir, Phyllis as a Child, and then Daniela, Phyllis as a young lady, aka Phyllis's love life. That'll be good. And then Alex, my brother, is going to read a love letter from Lars to Phyllis. So I wonder if you might come up and read.
All right, so this is Phyllis as a Child. I've wondered what would interest my family and friends about the rest of my life, since we all have a story to tell. As a small child, Leo and I had a whooping cough, which was terrible, not being able to breathe. Because of the depression economy, my parents moved us many times to find a place they could afford rent. Therefore, Leo and I went to many schools. When I was in 2nd grade, we lived in an old farmhouse with farmland on Spring Street. One night, my bedroom ceiling had a leak, and some of it fell in my bed. I was a tomboy, and I loved climbing trees. We only had a 2-hole outhouse. Me and my cousin Barbara would both use it at the same time. My dad had a good but hard job at Bell City Foundry. He was a gifted mechanic and loved working on cars. With the World War, there were many jobs available and many short supplies needed for the soldiers. We ate horse meat. I can't forget about my brother Fred, who was born when I was 5 years old. He was a little fighter and kept getting into trouble, like throwing rocks at cars while he stood over the bridge. The cops brought him home twice. My grandpa Hanson took Leo and I to the state fair in Milwaukee and let us drive home on the highway called 41, which is now Interstate 94. He was too tired to drive, and I was 12 and Leo was 14. We drove, and there wasn't much traffic. We celebrated the Ronsvogue family picnic in honor of my grandmother, Patrina, each August on the first Sunday. August 7th, 2016 is probably the last family picnic I will attend.
Okay, and then this one is Phyllis as a young lady. I never had a ride to school until I was a junior at Park High when Leo got his first car. In school, I loved art class and sewing and math and wasn't allowed to date until I was 18. 4 guys invited me to the senior prom, but I didn't want to make a dress to wear. Leo and I and a gang of friends went to the country dances where we polka'd, two-stepped, waltzed, and jitterbugged. Leo met Connie, and I met Harold while roller skating. At this time, I dated many young men, but not for long, no kisses, etc. Because of the draft system in the Korean War, many guys were anxious to get married. I was asked by David Schuper, Bernie Glass, Ed Chris, and Jerry Welker, so I stopped dating them. When Harold got his draft notice to appear for transport on November 23, 1952, he begged me to get married first. So on November 18th, we went to get married in Waukegan, Illinois, by a justice of the peace and had a small family dinner. We were 20 years old. Phyllis goes on to describe the end of her marriage. I wasn't at the court when the divorce was given. I got my boys a refrigerator, sewing machine, $2,000 I had brought into the marriage, and the wedding gifts for my family. In spite of everything, I was happy, working, spending time with my 3 sons and parents, and visiting brother Leo and Connie. Then, while shopping for discount meat with my friends, I met Lars, who cashed my child support check. Then he asked me out. At that time, my Uncle Fred wanted me to marry him, so I agreed to date Lars. Lars had no car, no money, no clean clothes, and no good food, plus 2 kids who visited him in his dirty apartment. I fit the bill, so we became a couple. He had a roving eye and was good looking, so I had my hands full. I gambled on him because his father was so nice. Lars had a lot of interests. He was a smart man and did the crossword puzzle with an ink pen, and he was fun.
Here's a love letter that my grandpa wrote to my grandma. Phyllis, life is worthwhile for me because I am in love with you, and dearest, even more because I know that you are true. Each day is joy with sunset bright, regardless of the weather, the sunshine that is in my heart, and we are bound together. There is no night without a moon or a twinkle star above, while we are in each other's arms and we remain in love. There is no greatness and no praise to which I could aspire. Your faith in me, your loyal kiss are all that I desire. Your counsel good, your patience and your sweet and loving smile are all that I really need to make this life worthwhile. All my love, Lars. And then my grandma wrote at the bottom, the nicest thing I've ever read. Could it be that we are in love? April 11th, 1962.
Phyllis and Lars were married the next year. This is another passage, Ecclesiastes 3, passage of Scripture, that is. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to uproot. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to tear down, and a time to build. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones, and a time to gather them. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search, and a time to give up. A time to keep, and a time to throw away. A time to tear, and a time to mend. A time to be silent, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. What do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is a gift from God. I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it, and nothing can be taken from it. God does it so that people will fear him. Right. And then we have a poem that Phyllis left in her folder with instructions. Read this at my memorial service.
Phyllis left a few handwritten instructions for us at this memorial service. One was that we should read the following poem. Before I do, I should let you know that she had arranged to have her body donated to science. Her submitted application was reviewed and was concluded that her body was already well used by her 89 years. All the same, her clear intention was to give everything she could to others. Now for the poem. If You Must Bury Something by Robert N. Test. The day will come when my body will lie upon a white sheet, neatly tucked under four corners of a mattress, located in a hospital, busily occupied with the living and the dying. At a certain moment, a doctor will determine that my brain has ceased to function and that, for all intents and purposes, my life has stopped. When that happens, do not attempt to instill artificial life into my body by the use of a machine. And don't call this my deathbed. Let it be called the bed of life, and let my body be taken from it to help others lead fuller lives. Give my sight to the man who has never seen a sunrise, a baby's face, or love in the eyes of a woman. Give my heart to a person whose own heart has caused nothing but endless days of pain. Give my blood to the teenager who was pulled from the wreckage of his car so that he might live to see his grandchildren play. Give my kidneys to one who depends on a machine to exist. Take my bones, every muscle, every fiber and nerve in my body, and find a way to make a crippled child walk. Explore every corner of my brain. Take my cells, if necessary, and let them grow so that someday a speechless boy will shout at the crack of a bat, and a deaf girl will hear the sound of rain against her window. Burn what is left of me and scatter the ashes to the winds to help the flowers grow. If you must bury something, let it be my faults, my weaknesses, and all my prejudice against my fellow man. If, by chance, you wish to remember me, do it with a kind deed or word to someone who needs you. If you do all I have asked, I will live forever.
Phyllis, my grandmother, taught me many things, and I wanted to talk briefly about Phyllis's worldview or her life philosophy or maybe even her religious belief. She attended Racine Bible Church for 25 years. As we've heard, her first marriage ended out of sad necessity in the 1960s when divorce was not accepted. She then married a very good man who had witnessed a lot of human suffering and evil, and who had what we would now call PTSD. Phyllis also believed she witnessed a UFO. She was incredibly curious about the universe. All these things came together in Phyllis in uncharacteristic ways. On Christianity, she confided recently very privately, "Of course I believe," but she usually kept those things private. More often, she would give me advice in my development as a Christian minister. She taught me the importance of giving thanks. We can't often change our circumstances, but we can give thanks in all things, even when things are bad. Give thanks to the Creator. Give thanks to God. And so today we have an opportunity to give thanks for Phyllis. We give thanks for her as a mother, by blood or by love. We give thanks to her as a sister, as a grandmother, as a friend. We give thanks for art, for green spaghetti, for a warm, welcoming home, for nice conversations around the table. Phyllis, we are very thankful for you. It's hard to put our thanks into words.
I'd like to offer a slightly different perspective for this woman who taught me to love. She did not grow up in a religious household. The household that she grew up in was one where there was constant religious war. Grandpa was Lutheran, Grandma was raised Catholic. Grandma came from a house that was in a religious war. Her father was Lutheran, her mother was staunchly Catholic. And so there was constantly friction on that. And because of that, they never really went to church. They never really embraced organized religion. And so there was never any expectation that anyone would go to church. But that's not what my mom wanted. She brought us. She chose to bring us to church. She chose to teach us to sing in front of church. Sing words like, "This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Or Jesus loves me. This I know, for the Bible tells me so." She was so proud when Jim, Bruce, and I wasn't 5, sang that in front of church. She wanted us to know. She wanted us to hear. She wanted us to believe. And so later in life, when she stopped going to church, we started wondering. And so 2 months ago, Jim and I and Evie were in the room talking with her, and we just wanted to clarify where she was. And we asked her, even after all this life, all the love that she has shown each of us, we've asked her, "So, is everything okay? Do you believe?" And she was offended. And she said, "Of course I do." It was almost like, "You know," and I do. So join me in a prayer to the Lord. Lord, we thank you. We thank you so, so very much for sharing this blessed person with us, for sharing the love that you've given through her to us, for sharing all of the loving kindness of a sister, a daughter, a granddaughter, a mother, a wife, and a grandmother. Now great-grandmother, and soon great-great. Lord, we thank you so very much for everything that she has taught us, everything you put into her, that she's flowed through her to us. We thank you for the gentleness and the kindness. We even thank you for the stubbornness and for the times when she just wouldn't take the wrong answer as acceptable. For the times when she helped to guide us, when she changed our diapers, when she helped us when we were sick, and when she showed us the way to love our spouses and our children. And the love that her and Lars had together was amazing. And it showed us so much of the way to do it right. The love that we now are showing our children. Lord, we know that she's with you. And we love so much that someday we'll be able to come to. Lord, thank you for everything, all the blessings that you've given us through her. And Lord, help us to mend our soul and spirit a little bit, because someday we'll go back and be with her, but until then we'll miss her. And Lord, let this love grow in each and every one of us, and help us all to be comforted by each other. Help us to remember the great cook and how she taught us how to cook, and all of the things with the flowers that she's taught us, all of the arts, all of the many, many things. Lord, thank you so much for the life of Phyllis. Let it go down as a blessing for everyone. Lord, we ask this of you in your Son's name. Amen.
Friends, how do we leave this place? Where do we go with our grief? I think it's important to remember, like Larry said, we have Phyllis's light in all of us. To end, I want to end with Phyllis's own words. In closing, I want to say that Lars and Larry always made me laugh when they could. So I encourage each of you to help make someone else's life a little better. Forgive and forget and be a good example for others. I've been very grateful for all my family and so many friends. Love you all. That's all there is for this evening. Please find a way to be kind to someone today. Thank you.
vintage dime I could afford. Like a child in white anticipation, long to hear that all aboard. 7, that's the time we leave at 7. I'll be waiting up at heaven, counting every mile of railroad track that takes me back. Never thought my heart would be so young. Why did I decide to roam? Gotta take that same